الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. We are continuing our reading of Allama Iqbal's Religious Thought in Islam, and we are somewhere here in the spiritual life of humanity attaches equal importance to all the regions of human experience as yielding knowledge of the ultimate reality which reveals its symbols both within and without. So we had stopped here. But just look this passage again, just to keep the continuity. So there's no doubt that the treatment of religious experience as a source of divine knowledge is historically prior to the treatment of other regions of human experience for the same purpose. So we looked on this claim in a detailed way. We connected it to the stage theory of human development. And we saw that it's connected to the enlightenment version of human development. The Quran recognizing that the empirical attitude, and we focus on what empirical attitude was, is an indispensable stage in the spiritual life of humanity, and we try to see how empirical attitude is related to the spiritual development of humanity and attaches equal importance to all regions of human experience. We saw that although the Quran attaches great importance to all regions of human experience, as far as the knowledge of the ultimate reality is concerned, we can't say that they are equally important. So we try to differentiate in their roles. What is the role of senses, understanding, reason on the other one hand, and revelation on the other, which reveals its symbols both within and without. And then we try to read the Quranic verses referred to here in their proper context. Now, Allama Iqbal is talking about ultimate reality, and by that we mean al-haq. Which reveals its symbols both within and without. By within we mean within human beings, within their self, and without in the cosmos, in the greater cosmos. And the way he put it here, so the reality is revealing itself. And this sounds like a Hegelian way of saying that the reality is expressing itself or realizing itself. So whatever is the ultimate reality, it is revealing itself in symbols, in the form of knowledge, in the form of human experience, through human experience. And it is revealing itself and its symbols both within human beings and without. And I think we can't accept this version of human reality, the ultimate reality, as some sort of a self-enfolding process or even self-expressing process. So if we mean by the ultimate reality Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the ultimate reality. So we can't accept that this reality unfolding itself or revealing itself in the sense of self-expression, or even if we can accept a form of self-expression, we can't accept the Hegelian version of self-realization, of which sees history as a self-unfolding and self-realization of the ultimate reality. Because revelation for us is something different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not revealing itself in this world as a historical process, because revelation rather means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expressing or conveying his commands. And implementing those commands, whether those commands are cosmic commands or his legislative commands. But that doesn't mean he's revealing himself, because he is perfect. He doesn't move in that sense, as potential moves from something which is not perfect moves from potential to actuality. That sort of movement is unworthy of the perfect being. On the other hand, Hegelian Geist, for example, reveals itself in this world historical process because it is essentially incomplete. And through this self-revelation, it is completing itself. So natural history as well as human history are different ways of self-revelation of this ultimate reality, which is an incomplete, which is finite, infinite, but incomplete reality. So it is completing itself, it is perfecting itself. And once it is perfect, everything will come to halt. That is Hegelian. And it seems like Allama Iqbal is working with that sort of ultimate reality rather than ultimate reality as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, one indirect way of establishing connection with that reality, with the reality that confronts us, is reflective observation and control of its symbols as they reveal themselves to sense perception. So the other way is direct association with that reality as it reveals itself within. Now here we notice that In the previous passage or the previous sentence, he talks about ultimate reality, but here he talks just about the reality. And it might be the same thing or different things, we don't know. And this reality confronts us. So this can be physical reality, social reality, inner reality or outer reality. It confronts us in the sense that this confrontation with reality is another Hegelian theme in this chapter, as we have seen again and again. So reality the heaven, the ocean, the mountains, the earth, the streams, whatever, is confronting us with reality. Confront us in the sense that it resists plans. And knowledge, at least in part, consists in overcoming this resistance. So in that sense, knowledge is practical overcoming of the object of knowledge and its resistance, basically. And we do this by understanding that reality and its symbols and manipulating it in a way that it becomes part of our plans and no longer resists our will. And that's part of knowing that reality. And it seems like that is true for human beings as well as the world historical spirit as well, because we are spirits. And the reality is in a sense spiritual, but it's also, as long as it hasn't become part of our understanding and our knowledge, it stands in front of us as an obstacle, as something which is resisting our plans, something which is the other. And this, once we know this thing from without and within, that otherness is overcome through, conceptually and symbolically manipulating that object. And that somehow makes us realize that that object which was confronting us is not something, totally separate from us. And by knowing that, we actually make it part of ourselves and our own self-development. So knowledge is a form of self-awareness as well, and works through symbols and work through overcoming of resistance. And I think it is all this is partially possible because reality itself, the reality which is confronting us, is also revealing itself. So it's not something which is closed onto itself. So in a sense, knowledge is meeting the reality halfway since it is revealing itself and we are trying to overcome its resistance as well. Okay, so, and Allama Iqbal mentioned there are two different ways of understanding and knowing the reality. So one indirect way of establishing connection with the reality that confront us is reflective observation and control of its symbol as they reveal themselves in sense perception. And the other way is direct association with that reality as it reveals itself within. So there are these two ways of knowing the reality which confronts us. And I think they are complementary ways. We have to combine both ways to actually know the reality as it is and become part of its self expression, I guess. So that's subject and that's the object. And this object is standing there as the other. But in reality, this subject is revealing itself or ready to reveal itself if we approach it properly. And it reveals itself in two ways. As something external to us. As something external to us, it confronts us. And the way to know this something is reflective. That is through a distance, through a separation of a sort, at least to start with. And basically this is done through observation, sense experience, understanding, and all that through concepts. And this is reflective observation, as Iqbal says, and controls of its symbols. Control of its symbols, the object, through conceptual appropriation, I guess. So that's one way, and this is the indirect way or mediated way. Or mediated way because you are knowing subject and object as something external and you knowing them through senses and concepts. And concepts, in concept you don't know the object directly because concepts always work through mediation, through including a particular within a universal of sort. But on the other hand, there is another way, is direct association with that reality as it revealed itself within. But this same subject and object, and I guess once we know it conceptually, this conceptual knowledge become part of us, and then we can know somehow from within this same object directly. Because so direct knowledge is intuitive knowledge. And traditionally it means non-conceptual knowledge. And in such a knowledge, object is not seen as something other than object is not something other than you, or you as the subject. It is rather something which has become part of your subjectivity. And since conceptual reflection, through conceptual reflection, you have brought the object from outside to within, so it has become part of your space of reason in a sense. And once it has become part of a space of reason, I guess this is highly abstract, but that otherness which the object has when it is confronting us as a reflective observational reality separate from us, that otherness has been overcome in a sense. And now you can relate, even though the way you brought in is conceptual. That's conceptuality because it is located within the space of reason, brings the object within the field of the subject, and hence overcome the. So in that sense, it reveals itself within that field from within, I guess. So that's my way of reading this. Okay, let's go back. So one indirect way of establishing connection with reality that confronts us is reflective observation and control of its symbols as they reveal themselves to sense perception. The other way is direct association with that reality as it reveals itself within. The naturalism of the Quran is only a recognition of the fact that man is related to nature. And this relation, in view of its possibility as a means of controlling her forces, the forces of nature. So that's a conceptual knowledge or reflective observational knowledge. Must be exploited not in the interest of unrighteous desire of domination. Now he's trying to differentiate his pursuit from that of the scientific exploitation of nature, but without giving up that confrontational stage within this journey, but in the nobler interest of free upward movement of spiritual life. Again, free upward movement of spiritual, in the interest of securing a complete vision of reality. And complete, therefore, sense must be supplemented by the perception of what Quran ascribes to as the heart, a direct. So, in a sense, so the mode of our knowledge of reality is indirect and direct. And indirect mode you have reflective observation, and the reality is out there as a something separate from you. But once you confront this reality and try to overcome its resistance, uh, and this reality become conceptually known to us through appropriating the symbols as they reveal themselves to sense perception, we are able to have a direct knowledge of this same reality. So this is the intuitive, unmediated knowledge. And I guess the spiritual, so here when you go subject to object, you reflective control. So that's the domination part. But you don't stop there. You bring it into conceptual field of the space of reason. And through that this object become part of the subjectivity, or you realize your inner relationship with the object. And I guess by spirituality or free upward movement of a spiritual life, what he means is that when you are seeing object as from the external perspective, you are looking at it as something other than you. But once you, through reflective observation and appropriation, you are able to conceptually, it in turn, through conceptual understanding, internalize this object become part of your subjectivity. And you realize that this object is not something separate from you, but it is your own self-realization. And I guess the whole process is self-realization of the reality higher than you, and you're part of that process as well. So that's what his spirituality mean for him, to see that humanity is the part of a cosmic process through which the ultimate reality is trying to complete itself or trying to realize itself. And when we realize that we are part of this cosmic journey, we attain, spiritual upliftment or spiritual higher spiritual awareness, where we realize from within our relationship with nature as well as our inner relationship with nature and the cosmos as a whole. So sort of pantheism, really, Hegelian pantheism. And Allama Iqbal is attributing here all this to the Quran. Okay, so then he goes on to quote this ayah, and that will take some explaining and some focus. So let's stop here. Inshallah, pick it up from here next time.